Hi, I'm Bart Hanson. I'm the owner and operator of CrushLivePoker.com. The following hand comes from our call-in show that we record at 4:45 p.m. Pacific Time every Monday. If you want to call in your hand, check out the phone number in the description. So this is
So
2-5 at MGM, right?
2-5 at MGM, as
Yep.
almost all my amps are. Fishy guy limps under the gun. We are
Okay.
in under the gun +2 with aces. Suits aren't really relevant to this hand, so I don't
Uh-huh.
call them. I raised to 25.
Yep.
Another sort of fishy recreational player who I've played a bunch with calls in the small blinds and the limper calls.
So three
We go
ways.
3 ways to a flop,
Okay.
75 or so in the middle.
Yep.
And we get a pretty good flop for aces. It's 8-6-ace rainbow.
Ace, 8-6
Eight,
rainbow.
8-6 rainbow.
Okay, so I'm just going to make up some suits here. Ace of diamonds, 8 of hearts, 6 of spades, and you have ace of spades, ace of clubs for top set.
Sounds fair. Yep.
Okay.
So we have top set, reasonably dry board, limper checks. I elect to check here because I don't really know what's going to call me. There are a couple of straight draws, but I tend to often check top set. Certainly heads up, I would probably check, more than 2 ways. I would probably bet because, there are more things to call you. There are more hands that have equity. But so I like to check the bluff and it checks through.
So small blind checks, limper checks, and it checks through, right?
Yep.
By the way, too, so we're going to comment on the flop play. HVAC 1994 says, Jesse the suit, I play with him. He needs to do a better job protecting his hole cards. Not the first time someone said that. I don't know if that's the same guy or the same lady, but or if this is an ongoing troll.
I've been making a concerted effort to do a better job. I'm
Okay.
pretty sure nobody saw him in this one, though.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, especially if you're in seat 5, guys. I have been in seat 4 and seat 6 where I can just totally see seat five's hand. You got to be really, really careful when you're in the middle. And also, too, when you're on the corners in seat 1 and seat 9, if you don't really use, I like to use my chips as sort of a protector. Like squeeze my cards behind my chips when I'm on the corners. That way, seat 9 or seat 1 can't see one of the cards, but be careful. So ace 8-6 here, top set, check, and you check behind. This is sort of a common thing for you, or I've heard you talk about hands on Crush Live Poker Slack, and we were PMing each other this morning a little bit, and I said it's a little bit different on an ace-high board that's top set, and there's a couple of reasons. Firstly, people will actually have more top pairs here when your
Because the
aces
most commonly played hand.
right when your aces are top set than like top set of jacks, and then of course that's because people are playing ace X, right? They're not playing jack 4 offsuit, but they might be playing ace 4 offsuit from the blinds,
Right.
or ace 4 suit, or any suited ace. So that's number one. And then number two, like I don't really feel like people just wake up and start bluffing. Like if you check back like a set of jacks on jack 5-6, somebody might go bet on turn and on river like with a straight draw. That doesn't tend to happen all that much, I feel like, on ace high boards. The other thing too is that when's the last time you've seen somebody as the preflop raiser check back an ace high board and then not at least call one like bet on the turn? I'm talking about if it's heads up. Because if they have air, they're usually going to see bet it anyways, right? Like if you had king queen or king jack. So, and then it's kind of weak just to check back and then obviously fold to a bet. So I like a bet here for a number of different reasons. I think you can bet small. You could bet 30 or 35. I'm not a huge fan of the check. I'm not a huge fan of saying, oh, like the hands that I check are always like top set. When it's short-handed for like balance. I feel like you can bet a lot of those hands just use small sizing. I mean, it's not terrible, but okay, it gets checked through.
Yeah, I mean, I would check a lot of other hands too, like kings and queens and jacks and like weak aces and such like that. But in any event.
Yeah.
The turn is a 9.
Okay.
Which obviously completes one straight.
Does it bring it back to a flush draw?
Out there.
Does it bring it back to a flush draw? Okay, so it's total range.
No.
Okay.
Just straight draws.
Yep. Okay.
So now the small blind, or rather the small blind check, and the limper bets 50.
Okay, so small blind checks, limper bets 50. Okay.
So 2/3 pot.
Yep.
I mean, for the same reason that I didn't bet the flop. Certainly, if I didn't bet the flop because I was trapping or protecting my range, there doesn't really seem to be any particular reason to bet to raise this card. That seems kind of weird.
It would, yeah. I mean, I tend to agree with you. By the way, so that we can circle back in the beginning, what are going to be the relative stacks here, like effective ish?
1,000.
Okay, 1,000 effective. So you now call, and it's true. Like if you wake up on the turn, it kind of does look pretty strong. And the other thing too is that this is different than actually like say turning a set of nines. Let's say that you played say like pocket nines this way, and you check back the flop, and you actually turned a set of nines. Raising there, I think, is fine because it's just going to be so much more likely that someone's going to have an ace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
here,
then the top pairs are unblocked.
yeah, here you sort of block a lot of, the value, things like that. It's interesting, too, that the nuts have changed now. Obviously, 10-7 and 5-7 are straights, but the limper really shouldn't have that from up front. So you call, and then what does the small blind do?
Small blind overcall.
Interesting. And total rainbow board. Okay. Mm-hmm. So now we're looking at a pot of, what, 150, like 225, something like that?
225, exactly.
Yep, okay.
With, 900 back or so.
Right.
So the river is, I think, a somewhat interesting card. It is an offsuit queen. Obviously, suits don't play, so it is a queen.
Okay.
Which brings in one more straight.
Right.
But doesn't substantially change the odds beyond that.
Yep.
And now the small blind donk leads 125.
Wow.
And the limper folds.
Into two people, and the limper folds.
Into two people.
So this is why I think this hand is so interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is just a call. Jack 10 is very, very well represented here in the form of probably like 16 combinations. And the thing about the composition of your hand, once again, because you have three aces, is that it's not like, again, like having a set of nines here where somebody could have really made aces up. I mean, there's a possibility, but it's way less likely, right? So what hand is the small blind leading here that plays like this for value that the queen changes other than Jack 10? Based upon like, the way that the hand's played out.
The only hands other than Jack 10 for which the queen is not for which the queen is relevant would be something like Queen 9 or Queen 8.
I mean, okay, but that's a very large stretch when you look at the board and you look at the action. Queen 9, Queen 8 would not only have to overcall the turn. Remember, the limper led the turn, right? You called.
And I called.
So the guy would have to overcall Queen 9 or Queen 8 and then lead it on the river into two people when he makes queens up. I find that really, really hard to believe, and I find Jack 10 to be way, way more present. Now, on the surface, it looks like I want to raise here, right? And try to get some sort of value from something, because I basically, well, you don't have the second nuts, but there's many straight. You have the nuts that's not a straight, even though 5-7, 10-7, and Jack 10 are out there. But Jack 10 is a hand that people will play like offsuit and suited too. And so not only is it like if you were to raise here, like let's say that the hand might have been a little bit different, or you just think the guy's a payoff wizard. If you raise and say you make it like 250 to 300, you have to be able to fold to a 3-bet. And if you're not that type of person, then you can't raise because you're going to get fucked. You're going to open yourself up. This just screams to me like Jack 10. I would probably just call.
Obviously, on the supposition that, say the stacks were shorter, you couldn't do it. Certainly, if one was going to commit one stack by raising would be terrible. Because Jack 10 is always going to call.
Yeah.
The bluffs are never going to call. And it's possible there's even some bet fold value range. So you'd be screwed against that range. I actually think that in addition to hands for which the queen improves them, there's also a non-zero possibility of trapped hands that have been played this way, like sets of 8s or 6s.
That just go check, call, lead. I mean, okay.
So check, call, lead.
So what did you end up doing?
People do that kind of stuff.
What did you end up doing?
Also, if the guy in the middle calls, I think it's definitely just a call, because then it's two people can beat you, what have you. In any event, I raised to 300.
I actually think that if wait a minute. If the guy in the middle calls, I think it might even be more of a raise, Because if the guy in the middle calls, that means the guy in the middle doesn't have Jack 10. So there's extra money out there. Heads up, there wouldn't be really a point to raising. Do you see what I'm saying?
Well, the guy in the middle doesn't have Jack 10, but, I mean, so the guy in the middle doesn't have Jack 10. I guess he could have one of the other straights that he's playing occasionally and not raising.
I mean, the only reason why you would make that case is that you wouldn't raise if the guy in the middle called because you think that your raise would look stronger and you wouldn't get called by a wide enough range from the small blind that leads, right? Because your raise looks stronger. But
well, I mean, then there's also a question of like if he has a showdown hand that he's calling with that alters the composition per betting range. They interfere with each other. But,
so what ended up happening?
In any event, I raised to 300.
Okay.
She relatively quickly bet 3 bets to 600.
Wow. Okay. So she min re-raised, and now you're sitting there.
Yeah, she basically a little bit slightly over min raised.
Oh, that sucks because now you're sitting there and you're like, what did I just do here? Like, am I gonna fold to slightly a min raise? But I mean, she made it 600. She started with 1,000. Even the ship would have probably been only like 800, right? Or like maybe.
Yeah, it would have been like. Yeah, maybe like 200 more.
200 more. So I mean, man, that sucks. But what did you end up doing?
Well, so I didn't cancel very long, but I have a reasonably good relationship with this lady, and I knew that if I showed her my hand, she would show me hers.
Like while the betting is still going on, you mean?
Well, no. So I tank folded while showing my hand because I wanted to fold, but also figure out what she had.
Right.
So I tank folded my hand face up, and she showed Jack 10 off.
Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, too. I just think that I think that the river is just a call. I really do, because I don't really see, unless you've got some sort of history where she's playing wide, when you actually look back at this board, Jack 10 is so represented here. Because I don't buy into that whole like overcall Queen 8, Queen 9, then lead river. I mean, it's possible, but Jack 10 is much, much, much more represented, right? So when you raise, now all of a sudden you're shifting the odds that you're getting, right? Like she leads 125 into 225. You only need to be good here like 1 out of 3 times. But then when you raise, now you have to be good more than 50%
equity against the call.
Exactly. But I like that hand, Jesse. Thanks for the call. I appreciate it. Hey guys, if you like what you've seen here, please click on the subscribe button and you'll get notified every time we put up a new video. And if you want to check out crushlivepoker.com for the first month free, use the code YTA200. Click on the link right there.